Welcome back, LTA crew. You know, there was a time in arm wrestling before everyone had an HD camera in their pocket, and there were a few individuals who traveled around the country to document the sport for us, and one of those people is Scott McInnes. He runs arm sport videos, which you can find in the description, and it is a gold mine of old school footage. With his permission, we're going to watch a match between two people that I've had the pleasure of training with myself actually, Pete Milano and RVJ Jr. In fact, not only have I trained with Pete, I actually got him on the phone before making this video to get his insights into the match, which I'm going to share with you. Both of these athletes are from the Northeast, and Pete told me that this actually wasn't the first time that they gripped up. They had met in Loon, New Hampshire at a tournament prior to this, and they each got a win on each other, so you know that's exactly what they're thinking about as they're gripping up here. Now, we all know Rob is a monster inside, and Pete knows that as well, and said he was going to try to avoid hooking Rob. However, Pete said he'd also been putting a lot of focus on side pressure, so that if the match does go inside, Pete will still have a chance to throw Rob across the table. Okay, now that you know a little bit of the backstory, let's get into the actual match here, again, courtesy of Arm Sport Videos. So they're in the grip up here, and you actually hear Rob say, push our palms together, because Rob wants to go inside here, and so he wants to be close, he wants to have good containment on Pete's hand, right? If you have a lot of gap between your palms in the setup, it's as though the opponent's hand is bigger, right? If your hands are close together, you have a better chance of getting them inside, but if there's that gap, you don't have as much bite on the back of the person's hand. So Rob wants their hand nice and close together so he can get this match into a hook. So we have a ref grip here, and right off the start, Rob is pretty much exactly where Rob wants to be. I mean, winning side of the table, has Pete palm up, but like I said, Pete knew this was a possibility and had been training for this moment. In fact, on our phone call, Pete even said he was surprised that he got a stop here, which he did, and you can see slowly and surely Pete is just grinding the match back. We're back in center now. Rob re-gripping, trying to grab higher, surging, but can't get through Pete's side pressure. It's very impressive, and this is what Pete is known for. I mean, look at this position. Pete is just applying non-stop side pressure, and every time Rob gears up for another hit, Pete is actually gaining a bit of an inch, like a boa constrictor with just constant side pressure. From here, there's a battle for the center of the table, and watch what happens right here. You see that? Rob comes up for another hit to set up again, move a little bit more to the front of the elbow pad in order to drag. The second he does that, he loses like 2 to 3 inches of space because Pete is so persistent with that pressure. And I mean, look, Pete went from maybe an inch or two above the losing side pin pad to now an inch or two above his own winning side pin pad, and even has RVJ palm up, relying heavily on his bicep here. Now, a lot of people will tell you that biceps actually aren't important for arm wrestling, and that the kind of layman's idea of arm wrestling is totally incorrect. And I don't think that's entirely true. I mean, look at this position here. This is getting very close to what you would look like when doing a preacher bicep curl. And while biceps aren't the end-all be-all, when you're on the defensive side of the table, there is no question that they help. Continuing on, very impressive defensive stop by RVJ here, and he's still hitting, still making Pete stay on his toes. But at this point, RVJ has to be feeling it in his bicep, his elbow flexors, and indeed we see him here transition into a press, probably to give his bicep and brachialis a break, put a little bit more focus on the tricep. But you can see he can't quite get it. With a press, you really want to get your shoulder behind your hand, but he can't get there without making contact with Pete's hand, which would be a foul. So he's going for the press here, but you can see he cannot get in a good press position, so he gives that up, goes back to his bread and butter, and manages to surge Pete to the pin pad. Let's watch that ending one more time, because this is important, why you should at least have some kind of press in your back pocket. Not only can it give your elbow flexors a break and focus more on elbow extensors, but it can also totally change the vector of force in a match, which could mess up your opponent, and just gives you options and makes you a little more dangerous. So again, Rob comes up, tries to press, and you can see the angle before Rob was going to was this way, if you can kind of see the cursor of my mouse here, and now the press is coming this way. So fortunately, Pete is smart enough to adapt to that and doesn't just get flashed by the press, but it changes things. And then you're going to see him again switch back to a traditional hook and pull him back to that original vector and get the pin. So if you're watching, safely start training a press, because it's very important to have that in your back pocket, if only for a surprise sake. Okay, now that you know what to look for, let's take it from the top. Right out the gate, RVJ supinates in, snaps into a hook, gets Pete palm up and a couple inches from the pin pad. But like Pete said, he's been training for this exact situation, applying tons of side pressure here, constantly gaining inch by inch every time Rob hits. He ends up in a little bit of a worse spot. We're now center table. Pete's actually going on the offensive here, getting RVJ a couple inches above his own pin pad. but RVJ's bicep, his elbow flexors are too strong, and he can hold in that defensive position longer than Pete would like, I'm sure. And so from here we have a war for the center of the table. Rob tries to transition to a press but can't get his shoulder behind his arm without making contact with the hands, switches back to a hook and drags Pete to the pin pad. I absolutely love this match. I think it demonstrates just the kind of depth that arm wrestling has to offer. You can go from losing to winning, from hooking to pressing, all in a single match, and it's amazing that people like Scott McInnes captured this so that people like myself and all of you guys can enjoy it. So make sure you check out his channel in the description, give it a subscribe, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and if you think I earned it, subscribe as well. I put out multiple new videos every week, and I will see you in the next one.